Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt. I have Tammy Stone on this call with me for about 3 minutes.
I could stay a little bit longer. My meeting's been postponed some, so I can be on here until about 3:30.
Oh, okay. All right, so what we're going to start out with is some budget modification information. And Tammy, are you ready with this?
I am. Can you see my screen okay there?
Well, I'm going to move it so that everybody else can see it.
Okay. Everybody should have received an email from me, and I'm just showing you one. It was individual. I've got a Safe Haven's email here, and what this email had was a GATA budget modification template form and also a document that says new cohort modification. The document that has the new cohort modification was what we discussed and agreed upon back in June when I was really hoping we could do the budget and the scope of work mods, but that didn't happen because we had to do the IGA with DHS. So we are still not executed, but we're getting closer with that. And so I want to move this stuff. I want to start initiating these this week and next week, and I'd like to have all these modifications completed by next week based upon a signed agreement between DHS and DCEO, which I anticipate will happen this week. So you received an email from me, and what I needed you to do, because EPIC was started pre-GATA, the GATA budget template was not even available when we started this, so we only had the 5 line items. But now one of the requirements now that we are GATA is they want us to have a GATA budget included with this modification. So I provided these instructions for you guys on the GATA document, and I will walk through that. What I need you to do, and I've gotten some in already. Hopefully I gave you till the end of today to finish this. If you do need an extension, just let me know and we can do that because this is a little convoluted and complicated when we start working with the GATA stuff. But I provided the instructions of what needs to be completed in this. What I need from everybody is a justification letter on your company letterhead signed by an authorized signature to accompany this. And basically all that needs to be is something that you're telling us that this is a modification that you're requesting and why. And it can be as simple as, if you're increasing your budget, we're increasing the budget, to incorporate a new cohort of customers, and we're also increasing our performance numbers to include the new cohort. So put it in your terms and your words, but like about a paragraph, no more than 2, of explaining that you're requesting this modification and why. So when this comes in, you need to include this new cohort document with any revisions, and if you need to make revisions, that's fine. If there's anything substantial, you need to get a hold of me so we can discuss it. But I need any revisions that are made in this new cohort document to either the budget or your or performance numbers, and then I needed to complete a GATA budget sent in. I need there's a signature page with a GATA budget, so you need to have that signed by an authorized well, actually it's signed by your CFO and CEO or their representatives. So that's what's required on this GATA budget modification signature page. And then a justification letter that comes with that too. So, but what I want to do is just kind of jump over to the GATA budget and just kind of walk through this. So Section A, everything that's grayed out, you don't do anything with. We have 5 line items, which is direct admin, and direct admin is also going to include your indirect admin costs because this was, once again, I said pre-GATA, and we didn't have that whole indirect system set up at that point. So it's just administration is administration, so whether it's direct or indirect. What you're going to be putting in this column B is current approved budget. So the document that I sent you that says the new cohort, I verified that all of those is what's in the GRS. So you can just look at that, or you can go to the GRS and pull those numbers. But it has to be what your current approved budget is. So we have your direct admin, participant training, participant wages, support services, and career navigation. And then everything totals on that. So there's the ICI page. It's all grayed out. This is, if you're familiar with doing the GATA budgets with us now, that's the indirect cost rate. This was pre-GATA, so we're not dealing with that. The only pages you're going to be working with is your direct administration, 15A, which is participant training, 15B, participant wages, 15C, support services, and 15D, which is career navigation. Now, all of these need to show the modification amount or the increase you're requesting. So let me give you an example. If you're decreasing participant wages, you'd want to put in something in the description as like, decreasing, and, just whatever your description wants to be. Your quantity. This form does not work well with when you're decreasing, so you may want to just put a quantity 0. And a basis is usually like annual, semi-annual. Let me type right. And then your cost, if you're decreasing it, say by 35,000, you can put a negative 35 in there. Length of time, I just put a 1 in there because that usually deals with a year. And then that gives you the 35,000 decrease. And then that is reflected over on Section A here. So if your current budget was, say, 120,000, and then you're decreasing it by 35, then that 85,000 is the budget that you're going to be modifying. We're going to be modifying it to that. And then whatever's in this as far as your current budget, your modified budget amount, and your new budget needs to also correlate with the new cohort form, that other document that has the budget and the modification or your scope of work changes in it. So you're going to have to kind of play with this. If you've already done it, great. If you haven't, you're just going to have to kind of play around with the numbers, especially if you're looking at staffing, your percent of time. Sometimes you just have to adjust that to get to that final cost. And there's no cents. So we've rounded everything because we don't want to deal in cents. So everything's going to be rounded. So just keep that in mind when you're working with this. So, and I'm not sure who, there's probably more program people than fiscal people, but I wanted to share this information with you guys on how to work with this specific document. And let me quit sharing my screen now. And does anybody have any questions
Judy
on this?
Got the proposal from a safe haven, or the modification from a safe haven.
I don't think I have received that one yet. The ones I think I've gotten, let me pull up my box here. The ones I've gotten, and I don't think I've gotten, full proposals from everybody yet, but I've got Homework Hangout. I've got Jane Addams. And then I think I've gotten, let me see here. Let me get in the right folder here. And I've gotten some information from National Able. But that's been pretty much it.
All right. Okay, so if you haven't gotten it in, please do so.
Yes, and like I said, my intentions is to have this done. And something that we need to keep in mind, too, once this is done, we're in a period that's kind of a lapse period, so there's still, there's money that's going to be available to draw down for fund expenditures before the end of June. So we want to make sure that we're, using that lapse money, so once we get this done, you need to make sure you have all your costs reported at least through June soon. And I think, I would love it if we can have it done by the end of this month, but, at least by the 1st of September, we need to have that done so that we can do the payout based upon it's the state fiscal year of 18 instead of 19, I believe. But, I'll send information on that as soon as we get these budgets done. But be prepared to go ahead and update all of your expenditures in the appropriate areas. That has to be supported, once again, by your trial balances. And then if there's any cash that needs to be requested based upon your expenditures, we can go ahead and start doing that then.
All right. Does anybody have questions for Tammy about this? If they need to type into the chat pod, we'll go over numbers, and then we'll come back to any of those questions. And if you haven't already checked in, please do so by agency so that we know who's listening to this stuff and who's not. All right. We'll pull that back open in a minute. All right. So I did numbers last night, so I apologize if I actually even got a phone call from one of you to tell me, oh, did you do numbers yet? I'm cleaning them up. And I had a presentation to do today, so I did numbers last night. So I'm sorry if your numbers don't represent what you took care of today. But we do have, we're looking decent. We still have an issue with the application that started, and Just to remind everybody, it has become our decision that we would like everybody to have their customers complete the application on the first appointment visit. That becomes part of their assessment and is located in the EPIC file. So we do need you to make sure that those are done on the first visit. Some of these are already passed, and so there's no going back. But if they did not make it to their appointment, or if there's a conciliation needed, please make sure that you're noting that in the case record. 2151 past due and enrollment required. Quite often those two lines on the dashboard and these two columns on the report here are some of the numbers, some of the same people that are in that application not started. So if you clean up one, you can sometimes clean up the rest of them. 2151A is past due. Failings, I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping that you got some of these cleaned up, but it says 21. And quite honestly, I was having problems with my keyboard, so I'm going to double check that number because I think it was a 2 and a 1 for Phalanx and then Springfield Urban League. So I apologize if that's wrong. I will make sure that it's correct before I send these notes out. But please check your dashboards. Minimal progress, no progress, and situation worse. They really should only, about 8 o'clock last night. It says that they're on the report. Minimal progress, no progress, situation worse. If you've got a customer in one of those areas, they need to be moving to a conciliation right away. So honestly, I should not ever have customers in those 3 lines on the dashboard. They should always probably just go straight to a conciliation. Maybe I just happened to catch them. But completion status, we've got a few of you that need to make sure that you're updating some documents based on either the customer completing or DHS marking and eligibility change. And then there are a number of SNAP eligibility changes that have been taking place. Show of hands, for those of you on the call that get the daily emails, have you been getting emails indicating when DHS is changing eligibility? Because we did an update for that, so it looks like several of you are getting those. So that's good. I'm glad to see that. Okie doke. All right, so that's it. I didn't do the staffing reports because, Kelsey, if you can check, I don't know if you've had any eligibility changes. It's only been, we've only made that update last week, I believe. They should be a separate email than the daily email that you get. So maybe nobody's changed any. So just watch for it for me for a week or so until we have our next call. And if you're noticing that customers are changing statuses and you're not getting the emails, please let me know. All right, I'm going to pull this down. Did anybody have any questions for Tammy? All right, so I'm going to share my screen because I've got some stuff I want to show you.
Hey, Dean, can I interject real quick while you're sharing your screen?
Yes.
I just wanted to make you guys aware that the week of September, I believe it's 10th, the Mathematica and MDRC are going to be doing on-site visits, and I think they're looking at visiting potentially 4 or 5 Chicago sites, and then they've dropped East St. Louis, so Leslie Bates, you might be a site that they're going to want to go to. And I'm going to be receiving more information. They've just actually communicated with me today, wanting to, some suggestions of sites and then wanting to know if some of the sites were Snappy and Tea locations too, because I think they probably want to look at one or two that is a Snappy and Tea location also. So I just want to give you a heads up on that, to be expecting information from us the week of September. I think it's the 10th. Let me double check.
10th through the 15th is what you told me.
Yes, 10th to the 15th. So,
but we don't know exactly when they're coming yet.
Nope. And we'll be working with that, and then I'll be communicating with you guys on that also.
All righty. Next item on the agenda is the CBO Contacts. In the file pod in the lower left part of the screen. All right, Kelsey, I'll get to it. The CBO contact list, please double check. I know we've had some phone changes and some emails and some people, and please check your list. Make sure that I've got the most current items, and if not, send me an email. Last call. Absolute last call. I talked to a number of, in fact, I think I spoke to almost everybody last week about numbers and do you want to include a person for a success story. I did not get the emails from you guys that you promised me, so please, if you want that person potentially included in the list, in the video recordings, please send me the email with who. And that way I can try to include you.
And just a plug on that, Dee and Olivia and I worked on some video shots that were taken in the Decatur area that it's really exciting. I think it's going to be an amazing video that we're going to have produced from that. And so, I mean, don't miss this opportunity. If you've got a good success story, I mean, all you have to do is set it up for us, and then we'll come out. We have a professional that's going to do the video shooting and then put this stuff together. So please don't miss this opportunity to showcase, some of your successes.
And what will probably happen is we'll probably do some shots of the person. We might do some shots of the career navigator or somebody talking about your agency for a couple of moments, and then we'll do some B-roll around your agency. So this is a good marketing opportunity for you as well. So I need the stuff. I'm giving you till tomorrow close of business. And it's my close of business, which is 5 o'clock. If I don't have your email, you will not be included. Okay.
And Kendra, if you can send it to me also, CC me, and then if it's bouncing back, I can always get it to Dee. So go ahead and CC me on those two, and then I can always make sure that if there's email issues, at least two of us are getting it.
Try that one. Okay. And then Kelsey, IDHS eligibility verification request not accepted within 2 days. What's your question about that, Kelsey? Okay. They're not always on target in 2 days. Deidre is working with her team, with the DHS people, and she is working to make sure that those things are being tracked and handled. I think there's, we always have turnover with DHS, so we've just got to make sure. I understand that a number of you have school programs and community college programs starting, so I know that right now the timing is very crucial. So I will make sure that she alerts her team that we need to get at these very rapidly within the next 2 weeks. Quite honestly, you probably shouldn't follow up unless you start seeing a whole pile of your people in the appointment has not been scheduled after 11 days. because I keep track of that dashboard as well as does Deidre. So we will follow up, and we don't want to make anybody mad. All right. Okay. I think I caught everything in the chat pod. I see D'Amico typing, but we'll catch that. Last item right here is CBO programs on DHSTA webinar. I have not had Asian Human Services and Inspiration Kitchen talk yet. D'Amico, when do you want to talk? I've got 2 agencies on the 24th, but if we can get everybody included, I will have 4 agencies on the 24th. And then Asian Human Services isn't on the call, so I'll have to call them and find out. So D'Amico, does the 24th about 10 o'clock work for you, 10 o'clock in the morning? After complete it, the application, as long as they, August 24th, D'Amico, as long as the customer hits the final submit on the dashboard immediately. So if it's not showing, you have to log back into that customer's application and make sure that they hit the final submit. And I know I talked to one of the agencies the other day, and the customer had not hit that final submit. So you got to just double check that. Oh, it was Frank from a Safe Haven. All right. Okay. We also talked last week about, or last call, we talked about adding short-term training. I'm going to pull this poll over. Whoops, wrong thing. I'm going to pull this poll over, and this is some of the classes that people added into what you could add as short-term training. Tammy and Olivia and I are going to talk, and we're going to come up with other opportunities that if your actual training is done, then you could add this as a very short-term program. But we have to make sure that it meets some requirements. So it'd be right around 10 o'clock in the morning, D'Amico. If you've got any other ideas that you want to add in here, or if you want to take any of these ideas to add programs. I know I was talking to somebody, and the last, I think it was D'Amico, their last cohort starts 11/9, and after that, then they wouldn't be able to take any more customers because their next cohort doesn't start until it's too late for them to finish. But if you can be co-funded with another training grant, you can still enroll customers as long as you will be co-enrolling them with another agency. And then today I received a call from one of you that asked, is it okay to co-enroll with WIOA? And the answer is absolutely. We want to try to leverage funds as much as we can. So if you can co-enroll somebody into another funding source program and get that customer paid for by more than one grant, we're all about leveraging those funds.
And just to add to that specifically, as we're getting towards the end for sustainability of your customers, so there is money in EPIC to pay for the services. So utilize EPIC, to its full resources. But if this customer is still going to be continuing training, and then that is a positive outcome for us. So if you can get them aligned with WIOA or any other training opportunity that can continue their support in the training, then that's definitely what we want you to do.
All right. So now I have on my screen, let me make it bigger, updates that have taken place since since our last meeting. And we have added, how many of you have noticed on the, when you click on a number and you see the customer search list pop up, that you've noticed the text string added at the top of each of those search pages? Anybody? Anybody? Raise your hand if you have. Nobody's noticed it? Well, let me show you what it does. So if we go to okay, Autumn noticed. Thank you, Autumn. If we go to a dashboard, and I'm going in test mode. If we go to a dashboard and I click on one of these numbers, at the top of the page, it says where you got to that page for with those numbers. And I'll tell you, with me doing a lot of this testing and checking and doing all this kind of stuff, I click on a couple of numbers at a time, and I get lost of which tab is which. So this is going to help you guys figure out what row you were just looking at on the dashboard and who you have to talk to about what. So that's one of the things that we added. Then the other item that is being added, and we're having a challenge, but right here across the bottom, let me make this one bigger too. And this is an issue that we ran across. So what we're doing right here is this note shows up, and I'll read it for you just in case you can't see it. The appointment time selected in the referral process is not reserved for the customer until DHS approves eligibility and clicks the button Submit Verification and Send Invite on the pop-up modal. And what I mean by the pop-up modal is when you go to pick that appointment for that customer, that screen that pops up there, that's the pop-up modal. And when DHS approves and moves the customer forward, then they see this as well. What that means is, Autumn, I'm going to pick on you. If you see the first appointment available for a location, you have to make sure that you either have a number of appointments available or you have to spread your appointment selection out a little bit so that by the time DHS gets to the approval, they can still approve that appointment. And I see Kelsey typing. Are you asking me a question, Kelsey? So this is still in test. It should get pushed tonight, maybe. Yes, and Deidre brings this up with her team all the time. They do know that they can schedule the customer for the next closest appointment when they have it. So it's just one of those things where some people have mentioned on their appointments that it's new cohort. Others don't make that differentiation. So there's some times when DHS staff might be just a bit confused about what's available and what's not. So I think they're getting used to the way we've got the wording, and I think we should be okay. All right. That is, I think that's, oh, let me go back to the updates page. We updated some enrolled dashboard counts to make some corrections for that. We put a fix out for customers who have a 2151 uploaded to move them out of the scheduled appointment row or into the scheduled appointment row. And then a case note, oh, I noticed a typo, a case note slot was added on the invitation. So if you haven't seen it yet, this invitation note right here is available. So if DHS has to call the customer in, or if something's going on with that customer, maybe they missed their appointment to do their verification information, maybe they missed it, so now they're in conciliation, there will be a note there, and you or me or anybody who has access will be able to see that note so that you can figure out why the customer is still sitting where they're sitting. And Deidre referenced this on the in the case note or in the chat pod earlier. So hopefully this eliminates some of the concern that you guys are having about why is my customer still sitting in this row. So Kelsey, that should answer your question from earlier. All righty, and let's see. Let me take a real quick peek at one other thing. I want to make sure that I've mentioned everything that's in process. New agencies, or I'm sorry, DHS will not be able to select agencies whose programs are no longer being offered. So when your program runs out and you don't have anything else in the pipe for an agency to select, your agency will no longer show in the selection bars. So that's why I keep stressing, come up with some short-term, quick turnaround training programs. And Olivia and Tammy and I will be working on that as well. Autumn asks, if the customer is added on a mandatory basis, they don't have to go into DHS, right? No, that is dependent upon if the Cook County all has to go. If your area does not do the family assessments, meaning like probably Region 3 and Region 4, then those don't have to be done. I'm not sure about your local offices, Deidre. If you're still on the call, Autumn is down in southern Illinois, out where all of those small offices are. So if you could reply to that question, I would appreciate it if you're still on the call. Otherwise, I will get an answer and include that in the minutes. And back to the notes. The assessment dashboard counts were corrected. The I-STEP dashboard counts were corrected. We removed a user access report. I think we may have already covered these. An automated email, that's what I was checking with you about earlier. And customer exports have included and moved around some rows. All right. I believe that might be all that I have to talk about with you guys. And does anybody else have any other questions? If you have not already, please check in. Tammy, I don't know if you're still on the call.
Yeah, I'm here.
Joe from Albany Park had a question about if he can talk to you one-on-one to go back over the budget stuff that you talked about early.
Right, and Joe, just give me a call.
She does have to get on a meeting, though, Joe, so just give her a couple of minutes, maybe. All right. And then Deidre's responding to Autumn's question. She says, mandatory customers have to be assessed by the local office. DHS can call them, and if they do not respond, if the customer does not respond, DHS is required to call the customer into the office. So, Autumn, if some of your offices are mandatory, then they would have to complete the assessments, and if the offices are voluntary offices, they do not. all right. So I believe I see Bill typing. I'm not sure if he's got a question for the group. All right, I'll double check those, Bill, before I send out the notes. All right. All right. All right. I will send notes out. I will get the recording out as soon as we can. And we will talk to you next on the 29th, if not before. I know you guys know my number and can track me down. So we will be in touch. Have a great rest of your day. All right. Goodbye. No, I'm not on the golf course.